G'day guys, welcome back to the off-season. Today we're going to explore some of our favourite test matches of all time. When you guys are watching this morning, the Kangaroos would have taken on Samoa in the Rugby League World Cup Grand Final, either a Kangaroos victory or possibly the greatest moment in international rugby league history. Joined once again, Jackson Hastings from the West Tigers. Welcome, mate.
Thanks, mate. It's good to be back. You must be paying me well for me to keep going on. So.
Oh, I'm paying you some of the best. Don't worry about that. Speaking of paying well, our marquee signing, Matty the Water Boy. Welcome back, my man.
What's going on? I'm still riding the high after such a good weekend of footy.
So good.
Mate, it was an absolute cracker, wasn't it? Unreal stuff.
It was so worth getting up in the morning for. I didn't stay up for the England game, but I watched it the next day. I had a wedding. So I tried my best, and I watched the first maybe 10 minutes. But yeah, woke up the next day, I couldn't believe it.
I actually thought the wedding would make you a certainty for the game.
Nah, maybe a couple of years ago.
I thought you'd be a sure thing. Fucking bullshit. Did you stay up for it or just set the alarm?
Yeah, I got up for both games. Yeah. Obviously, the Australia-New Zealand game was always going to be fascinating to see how it played out. And then obviously the England-Samoa game got ties there of England, so really wanted to see how that sort of turned out, and full credit to Samoa. That was one of the great rugby league moments and one of the great finishes to such a big game too. I thought England's tournament was outstanding. They certainly would be disappointed not making the final with the team they had on home soil and how well they'd played in every single game up to that, but you can't take nothing away from how Samoa played, mate. That was full of heart, spirit and great skill too. And to see someone like Tim Laffey play outstanding, was on the scrap heap there, and then went to Salford, my little club Salford, and rejuvenised his career. Got to a semi-final in the Super League and got Centre of the Year over there too. So good to see people that fall out of the game for whatever reason, go over to England and make something of himself, and now he's in the World Cup final too. So yeah, two great games.
I'm pretty sure Tim Laffey, he wasn't in the squad at the start of the tournament either. Yeah.
No, they had Tyrone May dislocated hip, I think. Yeah. Hamaso ankle injury, and
Isaac Tungo got injured.
Josh Alloway as well. They all got injured too. So those two boys, Kenseo got caught in the squad, and Tim Laffey, who were both at Salford, so they were already in Manchester, which made it easy for him to come in. And Tim Laffey's been outstanding, but I thought Jerome Luai was phenomenal again. 3 man of the matches in a row. Thought George Williams was outstanding for England too, so I think we're going to talk about it a bit later, which will be good. Yeah,
a couple of English boys that I thought were very unlucky to lose that game. They were sensational. I'll tell you what, boys, what I loved about the last few weeks, real nostalgia vibes of getting up in the middle of the fucking night to watch a game of rugby league on a soccer field with the circle on halfway and everything. It really took me back.
Yeah, it actually, I was thinking about that on the drive here, knowing that we're talking about World Cups and Test matches and great games of international football. We want to see more of it. We want to see more tours, whether that's England coming to Australia or New Zealand, or even countries now like Tonga and Samoa going over to England and playing these tri-series or standalone test matches. I think we really need to push for more test football. I'm sure we're all in the same boat. I remember getting up with my stepdad when I was about 10 years old and watching Australia and New Zealand go play Tri-Nations, obviously over in England, and listening to English commentators and, as you said, on the small end goals and soccer pitches and things like that too. But to see what the World Game's done and how much traction it's got over the last sort of couple of weeks, we definitely need more of it, and I'm sure all countries will push for that.
I still remember, and we're going to talk about some classic test matches, one we're not going to mention, but I still remember getting up in the middle of the night, waking up, dragging yourself out of bed, watching that game, and then Adrian Morley kills someone. Killed Robbie Kearns.
Was that 7 seconds?
Yeah, 7 seconds, and you go, oh, fuck, I'm up now. Yeah. What am I going to do for the next 79 minutes and fucking 50 seconds? But yeah, crazy scenes. Now, each of us went through and we picked two of our favourite test matches of all time, and being the three pelicans that we are, we had 100 years of test match football to fucking pick from, and half of our picks come from the one season, 2006. So
two from the same tournament, actually.
Yeah. Two from the same tournament.
Me and Matty teamed up.
Idiots. 100 years to pick from, they picked 2 in 3 weeks. Just ridiculous. Thankfully, I really broke the mould here, and I went about 4 months earlier, and that's where we're going to start. The Anzac Test of 2006. This game, obviously a blowout game. I think the Kangaroos win this one by 40-odd points or something. But this game for me, I more so remember it because of the players that featured in this one. And, you have a look through this side. I'll just read you through the starting lineup for this team because it is amazing how many classy players were in this side. So at fullback, Carmichael Hunt. On the wings, you had Matt King and Tamana Tahu. In the centres, the great St George pairing, Mark Gasnier and Matty Cooper. Darren Lockyer, he lined up in the 6 as the skipper, and his halfback in his final test was Andrew Joey Johns. Up front, Willie Mason and Petro Sevenasiva. Danny Medeiros, who we didn't know at the time, but this was his last test match as well. In the back row, Luke O'Donnell and Nathan Hindmarsh. Ben Kennedy at lock, also in his last test match. And then on the bench, Mark O'Mealy, Steve Menzies, Steve Simpson, and of course, another handy little player, Jonathan Thurston, in his debut game. Now, just to give you a bit more insight into these team lists, Jonathan Thurston was the 14 on the bench. His opposing number that night in the 14 for the Kiwis was Benji Marshall. So it was his second test. It was Thurston's debut. But, some pretty special players coming through. The lock forward for the Kiwis that night, you want to take a guess?
No.
SPW.
Oh, yeah, in the middle.
Playing at 13, So pretty special. A heap of great players in this side. Very young guys and a couple of old guys. Absolute legends of our game. And as I said, this Anzac test, 50-12, I think it was. People forget, though, that with about 30 minutes to go, Australia was only up by 8.
Yep.
And then Joey just went bang. The other thing that happens, Carmichael Cunt, I just did it. I just did it.
You can't cut that. You can't cut that.
Oh, how good. I can't tell you how many commentators I've watched get that wrong and giggle.
How good was that?
That's good. Special K, I'll be calling him from now on. How good.
Oh, that's a fucking piss off.
Keep rolling, Matty. Keep rolling. Sorry, we're raw here.
We're not stopping.
We're not stopping. Special K at fullback. Now, he gets injured with about half an hour to go in this game. So he comes from the field. They bring Jonathan Thurston on. He jumps into 5'8". Darren Lockyer, he jumps into the fullback role. So for about 30 minutes of football where they win that 30-minute period about 30-0, you got Joey at 7, Medeiros at 9, Jonathan Thurston at 6, and Darren Lockyer at 1. Unbelievable. And the show they put on was incredible.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff.
I would have killed to watch those three play more test matches together. Obviously, there was so much talent around 6, 7, 9, 1. Well, there has been for Australia for decades. Obviously, we were sort of talking about it. There was a couple of those boys last test. I think you mentioned Bedsy, Joey, Ben Kennedy, people like that. Then they just get swapped with Cronk, Smith, Slater, people like that. So it's amazing how much depth Australia have had in the key position. Oh, and in just the whole squad really throughout the years. But my favourite moment of watching those test matches was seeing all these fantastic spine players get jumbled around and put into different positions just to fit in. Like Joey played a lot of games at hooker to fit in other people. Obviously, Thurston on the bench went on to be one of, if not Australia's greatest ever 6. And then you had the other bloke that's probably in the conversation, Darren Lockyer there, went from 6 to 1. So, I mean, the amount of talent that Australia had, you can see why the scoreline was what it was. But, the 2 14s is pretty cool to see Thurston and Benji off the bench for their respective countries and then go on to forge their careers, and the amount of test matches they both played and the legacy they left behind is a pretty cool storyline within itself.
And when you watch this game, and I would highly advise if you're a rugby league nerd like us, I'll actually put it in the in the comments or whatever. There's a clip on YouTube. It's the entire game, the entire telecast from the start, and the opening scene is the Kangaroos bus going to the game.
Yeah, that's cool.
And Matt Johns is sitting with Andrew Johns talking about the game, and they're talking about, you've got Joey saying, we've got young Carmichael Hunt playing his first game. We're going to make sure we take care of him. That's enough, boys. That's enough, thank you. One of the great ones. There's also a moment there where Matty Johns says to Andrew, this is your first time ever playing Sonny Bill Williams, and he talks about how Sonny's going to, be going at him all night, how he's going to deal with him, and it's crazy to think that only 2 years later, it was a Sonny Bill tackle that ended the career of Andrew Johns.
Yeah, obviously a horrible unfortunate incident that sadly ended the career of one of the greatest players, if not the greatest player of all time, someone that we all admired. But it's funny how many storylines that you've just mentioned that have come out of that game. You always look back on past games and stuff, and when you dissect it the way that you obviously do, they call you the guru for a reason, although you can't get people's names right.
I call myself the guru anyway.
How much history and how many things come full circle, and I actually didn't know that Sonny ever played in the middle too, so That's one that I didn't know.
I'll tell you what else is really interesting about this game, and I knew the score off the top of my head, and when I rewatched it, it's like 30 seconds to go, and it's 46 or 44 to 12, and I know they score one more try, and the Kangaroos have got the ball right on halfway. Joey takes it down the short side, and he makes the fullback follow him, and he kicks it 50 metres back across field, puts it in between the sticks. Do you know who scores the try?
No.
Darren Lockyer.
Oh, of course.
So it's sort of another little storyline there where Joey goes from being the guy in this team, and as much as Darren Lockyer was already the captain, Lockyer was only the captain because Joey was injured for so much of time before that. It's sort of like a changing of the guard moment where Joey kicks infield, a perfect kick, very similar to what he did for Anthony Minicello in that game. Yeah. Darren Lockyer scores, and from that moment on, it's sort of like the Darren Lockyer show. Thurston comes into the team. Yeah. Only a few months later, we get to the Tri Nations, which you boys will talk about soon. I'm not sure why Danny Badiris missed that. I think it might have been his wedding or something. I think there's some storyline to that. Cameron Smith comes in, plays the next 50-odd tests in a row or something.
Not a bad replacement, that.
Oh, mate. And I'll tell you what, you talk about the guys in this team, your Johns, your Lockyers, your Thurstons. Go back and watch this game. I reckon Danny Badiris has a 10 out of 10 game.
I think Bedsy's career gets sort of not underrated. He's definitely not underrated. He's one of the greatest hookers of all time, hands down. But he was probably the greatest, and Smith comes along and has the career that he had. That it's hard to argue that he's not the best 9 of all time, if not up there with one of the best players too. So, I mean, the respect that I certainly have for Bedsy's career, being a New South Welshman first and foremost, but what he did for club, state and country, to play alongside Joey, and I know why his service was so good, because Joey would just get into him.
It had to be.
Yeah, but like I never saw him throw a bad pass, and the bigger the game, the better Danny played. I remember when Joey come back for that Origin game. I know we're going a bit off topic here, but Bedsy actually was probably man of the match if Joey doesn't play too, and they obviously were in sync when Joey caught it off the ruck, come back, and I've never seen it before, half actually passes back to hooker to score.
And you know what's crazy? In this game, they try and do the same play, but a back rower gets in the way.
No way.
Yeah, you go back and watch it. I was watching it today. I almost fell off my chair. I watched it about 3 times. A back rower gets in the way, and you can see Joey's a bit pissed off, and he just hands it off.
Joey never showed his emotion, so did he?
Never. Well, mate, you should. Like, that's the other thing. When you're watching this game, as they're coming off at half-time, they're up by about 8 points. They probably should be up by more. And you can just see as they're running off, Matt Johns is talking, and in the background you can see every single person in about the 50-metre run to the tunnel comes and asks Joey, how am I going? What should I do? And he's just telling each of them what to do. And these are, this is Petra Sevenasiva, Willie Mason, like some of the great players coming to Joe. And you can tell he's pissed off. He's not being polite to any of them. Yeah. He's spraying all of them, telling them where they need to be and blah, blah, blah. It's fucking unreal. And if you do get to watch this whole clip on YouTube, the chef's kiss, Phil Gould does one of his speeches before it.
The best ever.
Right, it's unreal.
I don't care what anyone says. When the best part about watching Origin, well, I was a kid. I don't know about you, Matty.
Yeah.
You were a kid too. When Phil Gould used to go out there with his expensive suit and it was pissing down rain.
Oh, it was the best.
And he'd deliver one of the all-time speeches. And no matter what people think of Gus, I think he's a champion. Always had time for myself. If I ever needed help with my career in terms of how I was playing or a bit of honesty, he would always be there to give it, like he would be for a number of players. Like he's been outstanding for the game, a great servant and doing great things at Canterbury. But just when he would go out there, and I knew it was the final message, is that what they used to call it, and Gus was walking and there was a slow-mo dramatic camera, it was raining at Suncorp.
But I remember at school, like, we'd be just as keen for that as the game.
You knew you were going to fucking lose the game, so you might as well enjoy Gus's speech.
Exactly right.
Yeah, but the best one's like
fights.
what you were saying, when New South Wales were really no hope of winning, quote unquote, when he would say something like, if New South Wales were to win this, which is long odds, and then he would go on, like, as a coach, how to win, and what he was saying was spot on, but we just obviously had to go out there and deliver it. One of the great footy minds and one of the great characters too, but it still gives me goosebumps now. I hope he comes out and just randomly does it again this year. It'd be so good, man.
Even if he wants to do it before
a normal game, even.
Canterbury games, be unreal. Just come out and give a little speech.
Yeah,
I think this game.
Just on Bedsy.
Yeah.
So he was expecting his first child, and he wanted to be with his fiance. But it's funny. The article that I'm reading is from Sydney Morning Herald, and this is the first paragraph. Test hooker Danny Badiris will take the biggest gamble of his career by stepping down from the Tri Nations for personal reasons and giving Melbourne rake Cameron Smith the chance to make the position his own.
Do you reckon he reads that every now and then? Did he end up playing again for Australia?
I don't think so, no.
That's it. That's
Really?
where it ends. Yep, doesn't play another game. He becomes the captain of the Blues for a few years. He never plays again for the Kangaroos.
No way. I didn't know that. See, there's so many storylines like what you were saying sort of off camera, the passing of the guard when it went from probably one of, if not the greatest spines we've seen to arguably now the greatest spine of all time. Obviously the Queensland spine was the Australian spine for such a long period of time after that, but it's amazing how they all transitioned. Obviously JT was 14 and then transitioned into the halfback role, but then the way Cam Smith got given his shot and talk about taking an opportunity and holding on and running with it, he ran for it for the next 15 years. So.
And that's the crazy thing. Like this Test match is the turning point of the golden era of Slater, Cronk, Thurston, all these sort of guys that came into this team after that, and it doesn't change for another 10 odd years.
It's amazing. Like when I used to watch like the news and like people talking about the Test matches coming up, who's going to be in the team, you just had 4 that were already that just picked themselves. I wonder if they ever, like, I'd never ask them this, but I'd love to know deep down if, as a player, you always get nervous about being selected in a team, or if there's a rep team coming up, you want to be involved in it, whether you're a 15-year-old kid or you're a first grade, everyone wants to play at the highest level. I wonder if those 4 just used to like pack their bags a week before, knowing that they were going to be in the team. I know Cam was obviously captain, or was for a long period of time after he was in the side, but I wonder if those 4 just had their own group chat. What are you wearing to the plane?
Yeah, what are you? And I'm sure, being the humble guys they are, they'd run with the narrative of, we'd always wait till, but mate, they would have known fucking the year before. It's such an incredible era of rugby league.
Yeah.
Anything else to touch on before we get into your 3-week bonanza that you've decided to focus on, boys?
Nah, all good.
We're going to wrestle over this, Matty.
You go first, mate, because yours the first game.
What was it?
Yeah.
There you go. They don't
Yours
call
was
him,
about 2 hours before.
they don't call him,
You
they
go.
don't call him the water boy for no reason. My game's the Australian Great Britain game at the SFS, or Sydney Football Stadium. The one where Great Britain actually won 23-12, beat the Kangaroos. I remember not long ago, I was sitting over in England, and there was a mini series on this where Leon Price spoke about they were sitting on Bondi Beach, getting heckled by the public, obviously saying he's a no chance, he's going to get smashed by Australia, this, that, and everything else. And I remember they had that sort of siege mentality where it was them against the world kind of thing. They were on the other side of the country playing against the world number 1 ranked Australian side with all these unbelievable players that we just sort of touched on. And there was these guys from Super League plus Adrian Morley and that come over to Australia. And I remember talking to Sean Long. I was doing a little podcast with a mate over in England. I was lucky enough to get Sean Long, one of the greatest Great Britain halfbacks of all time. And he spoke about the game, and it was arguably the best game he's ever played. I remember first half, he done a big show and go. I'm not sure who it was on. It might have even been on Lockyer side of the field, and he went straight through and he put St Helens teammate Paul Wellens over, and that sort of started the rut for Australia. Not long after that, I think he went to show and go again on big Willie Mason, and Willie didn't miss and got stuck into him. And then Willie and Jamie Peacock, Matty, got into a bit of one of the all-time stinks in Test footy.
Mate, I was actually at that game. That was at the, what did they call it back then? Aussie Stadium.
Aussie Stadium, yeah. It'll always be the SBS, but I think it was Aussie Stadium then, yeah.
Mate, I think that was the first ever Test match I went to, and Willie Mason, it was weird. A couple of weeks before that, my grandpa or something ran into him at the fucking doctor or something, and he rang me saying, I'm next to Willie Mason. It was 2006. I was in year 6. I was a kid. And Willie Mason talked to me on the phone, and then suddenly Willie Mason was my favourite player. Yeah. And then that happened.
Yeah, it's one of the all-time moments, because Sean Long's about, if I'm being fair, Incan, probably 5'9", tiny, long blonde hair, very elusive, good show and go, had a mad left foot kick. He kicked a field goal later on in the game to ice it. One thing I noticed about English halfbacks, they can all kick a ball, like whether it's left foot, right foot, field goal, whatever it is. They've just got this unique art of being able to kick a football.
Surely it's got something to do with the amount of people that would have played soccer when they were kids and whatnot.
Yeah, well, football over there, I'll respectfully say how they call it. They all grow up playing it, but the one thing I noticed, even like the props can juggle a soccer ball or a football, as they call it, so good. Like they got good touch when the ball comes to them. It's pretty mad. But Longy had a fantastic game, and he was partnered in half by Leon Price, who killed it. James Roby off the bench. Like they had a good St Helens contingent of players, but To beat an Australian side on home soil for Great Britain's a massive deal. Has a huge rivalry for them, and being lucky enough to say I've played for Great Britain myself, the history of what the blokes like that done before all of us now that have been given the chance to play for them, it's pretty special test match and one that I get to obviously look back on and see how good they went too. So
Well, it was their first win in Australia since 1992.
yeah,
huge.
It was massive for him. The way you hear Leon talk about the test match, like as I said, he was sitting at Bondi Beach, he says, and just getting heckled by the media. First and foremost, we know what the Australian media can be like. We're getting rinsed, and they just kept the receipts, and they didn't do much talking. Obviously, they didn't have the runs on the board to do the talking, so they went out there and they performed. And to beat a star-studded Australian side on home soil is no easy feat, and one that they all talk about now as one of their most memorable games.
Now, in the game that I mentioned, which was a few months earlier, the two 14s were Thurston and Benji. The two 14s in this game, Cameron Smith, James Roby.
Yeah, well, over in England, James Roby's arguably the greatest player to ever play for England, and arguably the greatest ever Englishman. If you're going on achievements and longevity, games, leadership, toughness, I had the honour of obviously playing against James Roby. I wish I got the chance to play with him, but phenomenal. Just signed on another year at St Helens. I think this is his 20th year. I think he's already played over 500 games combined. I think he'll go close to 600 if he stays healthy and they go for a 5th grand final run. He's been the captain of 4 in a row. And as you said, like they call him the English Cameron Smith, which is a fair rap too. So it's just so many good storylines in international football, but phenomenal player and right up there with one of the best I've played against.
Your old man wouldn't have missed James Roby by much by the sounds of it.
Yeah, I know. James Roby's been playing since 1908 by the sounds of it. He's played for all sorts of teams. But if you boys actually take an interest in watching Super League this year, which I'll be on your case about, getting up in the morning and watching, James Roby's pass off the deck, and I mean, age is only a number, but for someone to be able to do it for so long, his pass is so clean. Like that, you got to remember they're playing the first sort of 8 weeks of the competition. When you go over there, you learn about how you actually have to play. So in Australia, you can play that brand of football where if you want to, you can zing it in any month that you play. Whereas over in England, that first 4 to 6 weeks, it's usually boggy, pissing down rain. You got to remember that you actually sweat even though it's raining. So the condensation and things on the ball makes it hard to grip first and foremost. So any contact under the ball, it's probably going to come free. But his concentration and fitness, he'll make 40-odd tackles, but his service from the first minute to the last minute with his tight spiral out of dummy half is phenomenal. I don't know if he's done any work with some rugby union 9s over there, but that's one thing that I did notice. He gets through all the shit work that you don't see, will tidy up, make them tackles where you put your head where you don't want to, dive on loose balls, but his service is second to none and be up there with some of the cleanest passing I've seen too. So got a massive rap on James Roby for sure.
One thing I just noticed about this Kangaroos team too, and I'm trying to think who would have been the last person. It's been a while since this would have occurred. Jamie Lyon, he was playing centre. He was actually picked from St Helens that year.
Well, there you go. Like St Helens, one of the greatest clubs in the world. We get to see Penrith versus St Helens in the World Club Challenge this year, which is great. We get to get that back, and obviously Saints have won 4 in a row. Penrith have been to 3 grand finals in a row, so it's sort of a legacy game for both clubs. But yeah, Jamie Lyons, when he went over to the Super League and come back, if you ask anyone, not only from St Helens but in England, they'd put Jamie Lyon in the conversation with anyone for greatest overseas import. So the impact he had over there to obviously be playing for St Helens to then get picked in Australia is a phenomenal feat too. And I don't know how many people would have done that too. We obviously got the rugby union. They had the law where you had to play in Australia to make Australia. They've obviously changed that now, but I don't know how many people would have went to Super League and then come back and been able to get picked for Australia. He should have been in the underrated conversation about 4 weeks ago. He was unbelievable.
Yeah, he was a special player.
Unbelievable.
Special player. I was just having a look. Obviously, I said Cam Smith was on the bench. Can you name the starting 9? Have you got it, Matty?
I've got it in front of me.
Berrigan.
So
Yeah, Sean Berrigan. What a fucking season that was. He was a centre halfway through the year. I think he played Origin at centre. Mick Ennis gets injured, and Wayne Bennett goes, fuck it, I'm going to play my centre at hooker, and he won a Clive.
Yeah, that's the year the Broncos won the comp, wasn't it?
Unbelievable.
Yeah, he could play literally, he could play anywhere, couldn't he? And he wasn't the biggest bloke, but he had such a good IQ for the game. I remember, as you said, he could play centre, never looked out of place, speed-wise, strength-wise, athleticism. Then he'd play in the spine positions, and his footy brain must be, out of this world for him to be able to adjust as well, because centre, doesn't matter what era of football, you have to be able to move, you have to be able to score tries. In the halves, you need to be able to control the team and stuff. And for him to be able to then go to 9 and get the balance right between physicality, endurance, skill, speed, and then to obviously go on and win a comp, but then get to Clive with the teammates he had. I'm sure you got the teammates.
Mate, I've
there.
got something that you won't believe.
Yeah, go on.
So Sean Berrigan, 2002 Origin Series, he plays 3 games at 5'8". 2003 Series, he plays 3 games at halfback. 2005 Series, he plays 3 games at centre. 2006, he wins the Clive Churchill at hooker, and he's the Australian hooker in front of Cameron Smith. It's fucking unbelievable.
It's a fair resume, really, if you think about it. Like, because some people, like, you're lucky enough to play one Origin game at not even your chosen position. Obviously, there's so many good people, but to play 3 of the most important positions on the field for 3 games in 3 series in different years, pretty phenomenal effort.
I think that 06 season as well, like, just as far as Sean Berrigan goes, I think it's one of the most underrated coaching moments of all time, what Wayne Bennett did. He moved his centre to hooker, and he had Carmichael Hunt, who was this young gun at fullback who was setting the world alight. People forget he moved Justin Hodges to fullback the week the final started, and Carmichael Hunt went to the wing. And not sure if you remember, but there was the game to get into the grand final. Canterbury's leading by a mozza at halftime, and then Justin Hodges comes up with this unbelievable play to get them back in it. And they make a huge comeback in that game. It was actually Sean Berrigan that scored that try. It was like upside down in the corner at the SFS. Crazy stuff. Really underrated moment by Wayne Bennett. Made a cracking game there.
Yeah, unbelievable. And just on Berrigan, like to win the Clive with the teammates he had, like that's one of the underrated teams of all time. That 2006 Broncos side, like they've had some great sides, and for Wayne to move him from centre to 9, there's a reason. There's coaches, and then there's unbelievable, immortal coaches. And that's why they call him the super coach, the master coach, Wayne.
And I'm pretty sure there's a story with that 06 team. I think they lost their last 6 games or something coming into finals, they were on a shocking run, and then he just managed to completely turn the entire thing on its head.
Yeah.
Now, Matty, 3 weeks later, there's another good game in this Tri-Nations. Do you want to take us through that one?
You know what? I don't even think it was 3 weeks later. I think it was a bit less than that.
Shock me.
But, so it was November 4th was your game, Jacko, and then this was the final on November 25th. So cast your mind back. This is the Tri-Nations 2006, right? Excuse me. The year before that, Australia lost the Tri-Nations to New Zealand in the final. They got pumped like 24-0 or something. So Australia were like, it was going to be one of those series where they didn't want to lose kind of back-to-back. But this 2006 final was at Allianz, and it started with a bit of ill discipline from both sides, a couple of penalty goals. I think the New Zealanders were trying to rough up Lockyer a bit, and there's a couple of not fights but scuffles. First try of the game was a long-range effort. They went to Gaznia, who found space, drew the fullback and put Brent Tate over in the corner.
Go on, Ray Warren.
I'm just giving you the facts, mate. Then another scuffle, and Australia go up 10-2. So there was, I think, 3 penalty goals in this game. And that try that Australia scored was the last try. Like, that was in the 10th minute, I think. And they don't score for the rest of the regular part of the game. The Kiwis scored a fucking sick try about 10 minutes to go before the halftime break, where Stacey Jones put a little chip over.
Yeah.
Brent Webb, pretty sure.
Yeah, Brent Webb.
He was grouse.
Catches it on the full.
He was so grouse.
Regathers and then just fires it to Frank Pritchard,
the tank,
who scores on his first touch.
Yeah.
And then what happened? Then the Kiwis took the lead they drew the game. It was 10-all when Vangana turned it inside for Soliola, crashed over. Stacey Jones missed the goal, and then JT kicked another penalty goal. Then late in the game, so there's that, it's gripping contest, barely any tries scored. Stacey Jones goes for one of his famous little grubbers, straight in front of the post, gets taken out, penalty, 12-all. So it looks like it's going to be going to extra time, and it's funny you brought up Willie Mason before, because Willie Mason nearly...
Fuck, I just remembered this. Yeah.
So Willie Mason nearly has one of the best Origin moments and one of the best Test moments of all time. Obviously, he had that huge break in Origin where he almost scored, but he got caught at the end and dropped it. In this game, and this wasn't his fault at all, this was all fucking good.
He did everything perfectly.
Everything was so good. He crashed through. There's dead set 20 seconds to go. It's 12-all. And he just puts this kick in, and it's just perfect. It doesn't look great, but it's
from about halfway.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Just perfect. And Inglis is firing through. Thurston ends up putting the ball down, but they go to the video ref, and they said that Inglis touched it, which he did. So went to extra time. And then extra time, field goal, like no one's kicking anything. It was golden point, actually, not extra time. And then JT.
Take it away, Matty.
I can't do it, but show and go inside his own half, runs the field. And then Darren Lockyer, who has just had the most incredible 2006 season, is in support, as you said, for the Anzac Test, and scores under the post in the 87th minute. And Australia win. Such a good game.
That was the first ever Test match I went to, and I remember watching that Thurston, the big windmill dummy, go straight through. And as you said, Lockyer's 2006 season.
Fucking crazy.
That was the year where he scooped up Brett Hodgson's pass to win Origin.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
He won the grand final, kicked the field goal in the grand final, and then came up with that play in that game.
And it was also and that year, he was pretty much gone from Origin if they didn't win.
Yeah, he was told, this is it. You've got to win or you're gone. And he came up with that play, intercepting that pass.
Yeah, fuck. When you talk about Thurston in that moment, you talk about unstoppable plays of all time. He done it in Origin so often, flying down. Obviously he did it for the Cowboys, but in Origin and for Australia, the amount of times that he'd fly down a short side, and you always get taught as a young half to hold the ball out in two hands so you can run, kick or pass or show. And Thurston probably was the first half that I genuinely saw that done it week to week. Every single game was a threat of, is JT going to run? Is he going to dummy? Is he going to grubber? Is he going to pass? And it's a good lesson for all young halves that aspire to be anything like him or want to play a similar way, because it holds up in the big moments. If you've got the ball in two hands against a tiring defence in a hard-fought game, you got to remember that you're defending on edge, you're not making 40 tackles, and you're coming up against tired middles. If you've got the ball in two hands and you gain their respect early on in the game by running the ball, copping a whack, or going right into the line and passing short, it keeps that person in two minds, and it's a good lesson for all young halves that it holds up in big moments. And the amount of times that I'd see Thurston go straight through, but as you said, to have Lockyer in support after the year he had and the career he had, and he was always there, Lockyer. It doesn't matter what age he was or however long he played for, he always turned up. And those two, the legacy that they had will always be that in the big games, in the big moments, Thurston Lockyer would always turn up, and that's just another one of them moments.
Speaking of turning up, in that game, that was the last game for a Kiwi's great. It was his 55th and last test, Ruben Wiki. 55 tests, played his first test in the centres. Played his first test in centres, last test in the front row.
Yeah, pretty cool transition.
Sums him up, eh?
Yeah, just what a career too. One of the most intimidating and feared rivals for opposition players ever. Whenever you hear people talk about their most feared opponent or someone they feared the most, Ruben Wiki's always up there in conversation. You always hear, personally, I always hear Adrian Morley and Ruben Wiki. So it's a fair nod to someone of his calibre too. So to play that many test matches as well and go from one position to the other like that's pretty remarkable.
Not just Wiki. It was Stacey Jones' last game as well.
Was it?
And
Wow.
and Nigel Vunganas.
Oh, it's a big three to lose, isn't it?
And shout out to Nigel Vunganas. Remember how often he used to play 5'8"? He'd play centre at Clubland. He moved to 5'8", and he would always match it.
He had this knack of scoring a try too.
Yep.
Just had a knack of going over for a try, man.
Yeah, if he was still around at ATS, it'd get an absolute fucking pounding from me. He always found a way. Just on a bit of a rugby league nerd sort of sense, I reckon the jerseys the Kangaroos wore in this series and the Kiwis ones. So the Kangaroos was no collar, no sponsor on the front.
Yeah.
They had PlayStation on the sleeve, and it was it was a pure jersey. And I reckon the Kiwis one, I reckon it's the best Kiwis jersey I've ever had. Black and white V. Red sponsor, I think it was Crisco. I think it was.
White shorts?
White shorts, yeah. All black, a very simple red sponsor there, but that Kangaroos jersey, there was no sponsor, no VB or anything like that. It was just PlayStation on the back and just like a pure Kangaroo. It was like an old school sort of
Yeah, bring back
jersey.
the collars, man.
Yeah.
Collars are the grouse. Even when, is it the Broncos that have that retro collared jersey? They still wear it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The yellow.
Yeah, it's unreal. I remember that because they slapped us in a prelim final in that jersey. Ben Hunt had a field day. But, I just remember, it was blurred lines for me. It was like packed house at Suncorp. I was on the bench riding the bike. And I remember when they ran out and they had the big horse, the Bronco, run out before them, the fireworks and stuff. And I just remember looking over and thinking, fuck, they're sick jerseys, and it's always randomly stuck with me. But bring the collared jerseys back, man. Every club should have a collared jersey, like it's in the kit.
I remember saying, this was a few months ago when Shandor was on with me and Kempy, and I remember it was the week the Broncos... Do you remember this, Matty? It was the week the Broncos wore that jersey, and I said to him, when you've got a retro jersey like that, that's got to be history to it, does it mean something to you? And they both sort of went, no, it's just what you wear. It's just another jersey. And I thought, surely fucking not. Surely fucking not.
For me, like, I reckon it'd be cool for whatever club you play for to have, like, one game throughout the whole year. Well, we did have a retro round, didn't we, at one point?
I can't imagine a world where you playing for the Tigers if they brought out a 2005 exact kit. Would that not mean something to you?
That'd be sick, man. Yeah. But, like, because automatically you think about the players that have done it before you, and especially if, for example, the 2005 jersey, like, you automatically think of Benji's flick pass or Scott Prince's kicking game or Toddy Payton's offloads through the middle and stuff like that too. So it brings back, like, fond memories of such a historic moment for your club, and you want to do the club proud, but you want to do the past greats proud too. So I reckon we should, whether it's a retro round or not, every club should just be able to come up with a jersey with a collar or just a retro jersey in general that symbolises a historic moment in their club's history, and you get to wear it, like, that year. Like, sorry, go on.
I like what the Roosters did this year, how they had the 20-year anniversary of the grand final jersey,
Warriors,
and they waited to the Warriors game, and they had the collar.
Yeah, well, I picked that as my... remember we picked our favourite jerseys the other week, and that Roosters one and the Warriors ones were my favourite too, because it means something as well. Like, it's historic for those two clubs. It's a historic moment in both their clubs' histories. And the players, the Roosters, it was cool. It was at the SCG for one, that has a special touch, but two, they got their jerseys presented. So whatever number the past great wore, presented that to the future too. So Sam Walker got his jersey presented to him by, who was the halfback? Was it Craig Wing?
Yeah.
Like, stuff like that. Like, Freddie got to present Luke Keary. Like, that's a cool combination of two great Roosters legends there. Like, I mean, to have them in the sheds before the game, giving you a chat, wearing a historic jersey, a historic moment, a premiership winning night for the club, I know that I'd get a huge buzz off that, and there'd be one for the memory bank for sure.
All right, it'll be interesting to see in 20 or 30 years' time, because all the jerseys that we're remaking, or most of them, come from the 80s and the 90s when they were like big, oversized jerseys. I reckon it'll be interesting to see in 20 or 30 years, will we be making retro jerseys that are being played in today that are the same skinny sort of material? Like, I was looking at the Dolphins jersey the other day, and everyone's bagging the shit out. I'm going, fuck, it'll be interesting in 30 years' time if when they bring that back as a retro jersey. Yeah, it'll be a retro jersey eventually. But will it be the same if they're the same as these skin tight jerseys? Like, I look at the way that jerseys were made 40 years ago, and there's not going to be as much of a difference, the jerseys that are made now to 30 years' time compared to 30 years ago. You know what I mean?
Just put a collar on it.
Put a collar on it? Yeah, it's not
just put a collar on it. I reckon if they done that, like, I actually don't mind their away kit.
I don't love it, but yeah.
It's a bit different. Like, they've gone for something different, and it's unique, and it's their first year. But as you said, when you look back on in 20 years, and if they have a 20-year reunion, if they make a semi-final or a grand final, or have a magic moment, like, I'm sure in 20 years, the people that wore the Dolphins kit, of the boys that wore the inaugural kit in the first year of the NRL, I think they'll think that's a pretty cool moment.
I also reckon, I wish I could go back and ask 14-year-old myself if I liked the Titans jersey before they played a game.
I've got one.
Because I look back at that OG jersey and go, that's fucking sick. I'd love to know if I liked it that much at the time.
You got to remember with the Dolphins too, Wayne's the coach. So it holds significance that it's their first game in the NRL. But Wayne being the coach automatically makes it a historic moment, obviously. But when you look back on their team and who was the coach, they'll be able to do something with that jersey for sure. And I was only joking about putting a collar on it. You can't just put a collar on it and make it historic. But, I mean, there will be history there, and they've got a fair roster too. So I'm sure they'll have some big games this year. Like the Brisbane, the local derby of Brisbane, I'm sure that the Broncos could whip out that kit with the collar in 15, 20 years, and the Dolphins can whip out their first ever NRL jersey and call it whatever cup. It'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, it'd be cool. All right, we done with 2006?
Yes.
Wasn't there another game? Yeah, got it.
Just one last thing on 06. Lockyer also won the Golden Boot and also won the Wally Lewis medal.
Did he?
Wow.
Yeah.
Like, that's some year. Is that one of the... That'd be up there with one of the greatest years ever.
When I think big years, I think that versus Cam Smith 17, and that's the grand final for me. Yeah.
Well, what about Boyd Cordner when he was captain of Origin Series?
Well, he won back-to-back
NRL.
Origin Series and back-to-back NRL series.
And
as
then he
captain,
captained
yeah.
Australia.
And to World Cup, yeah.
So that's
true.
that's hard to beat. Being in the team, but if you're just a squad player or a guy in the team for all three of them, that'd be big. But to captain all three, I mean, that has to hold some weight, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. But once again, we spoke about this the other day. You probably don't remember it. Like I'm glad you brought it up, but I don't reckon most fans would remember that about Boyd Cordner.
Yeah, but
because he doesn't have those moments and those highlights, but they should, because like he was obviously the first choice captain in all those teams.
And if you're a rugby league fan, Boyd done it in such a colossus way. Like, I mean, inspirational. Like, just led from the front. Had to obviously, sadly, prematurely retire from head knocks, but he done that, putting his body on the line for club, state, and country. And you can't ask for any more from a leader than that. Someone that led with their actions rather than words. So,
but it is crazy that during that year, Darren Lockyer, the intercept in Origin, scored the match-winning try and kicked the field goal in the grand final. Like, just he had a moment in each of them that's like, is that the biggest moment in State of Origin history? I personally think it is. It turned the whole thing on its fucking head.
what game was that again?
Game 2
3
was in Melbourne.
No,
it was game 3, was it?
2006.
And it was 1-1.
That hurts.
Yeah, it was 1-1.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It was down in Melbourne, wasn't it?
And they were down with 8 minutes to go.
But just the way it happened, like,
down in Melbourne, yeah.
we probably haven't seen anything not go to plan like that ever. Like a pass not go to the mark like
When
that.
was the last time you saw a dummy half pass intercepted?
Well, you see a lot hit the ground just purely if someone's going for a run and
Yeah.
they're in front of them or something. But you don't see too many. I don't want to jinx this for myself here, so I'm going to touch wood. You don't see too many that go that badly wrong. Do you know what I mean? Like, to lead to a try.
And I just remember sitting there watching it and obviously absolutely fucking distraught. And just because Lockie's such a legend, you don't want to ask the question. But if it was anyone else, I'd say, why was he there?
I'm a blue through and through, and the only thing that goes through my head for that moment, I was sitting there with my family watching it as you do pizza, whatever, and just hearing the commentary, like Rab scream, Lockyer, Like, it gives me nightmares thinking about it. Just
PTSD.
It's a great moment if you're a Queenslander and just an out-and-out footy fan, but being a New South Welshman, it's heart-wrenching, really.
Just on Boyd. So I thought he was captain in that 2017 World Cup, but I forgot. I don't know why I thought this, because I just said Cam Smith. Cam Smith was the captain in that World Cup. And then Australia, I must have thought the World Cup was 18, because Australia didn't really play much of a tournament. Haven't really played much of a tournament till now, actually. Like that, he played 2 tests in 2018 and 2 tests in 2019. One was the one we lost against Tonga. One was a game we lost to New Zealand. So yeah.
He was back-to-back captain
He was
for the
back-to-back
Roosters
captain
and
for-
back-to-back in Origin Series. Is that right?
Yeah, but like he captained Australia, but the achievements compared to Smith and Lockyer probably weren't as good as a captain in those couple of years.
Yeah, still very historical.
But mate, still fucking incredible.
Yeah, exactly.
Still impressive.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to kick us off with my next game, because I think I'm going to take us back pretty far here. I'm going to take us back to 1990, Kangaroo Tour over there. An incredible squad. I actually remember, boys, when I was a kid, my old man had a tape of this 1990 Kangaroo Tour. It had every single game, including the club games, and then it followed them around during the week. And overs, unders of how many times I watch this video, whatever it is, I'm taking overs. Doesn't fucking matter. I'm taking overs. So I knew this series inside out. It was fucking ridiculous. And it's one of the great series of all time. Game 1, England win that. The Kangaroos had gone around and just bullied all the club sides, which I would love to see come back, by the way.
Well, they kind of did it this World Cup. Madge
Yeah.
Madge done a special game for Tommy Luluwai against Leeds, which is pretty cool, man.
Oh, mate, it's unreal.
Yeah.
And there was a couple of games during this series, like most of them, they smashed those teams, but there was a couple of games where they really put up a good fight, and it's the old Kangaroos and Emus, where you'd have the whole touring squad, you'd have the Kangaroos, the best 17, then you'd have the next best, they were called the Emus, and they'd play on a Tuesday night, make it back to the hotel on the Friday, be ready for their next game on the Tuesday, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
They had a great time.
Yeah, Wayne Bennett, when he was coach of England and Great Britain, he called it the bomb squad. So if you weren't playing, you're in the bomb squad. And Wayne's such an old school, like, great people person, as we all know, but he used to actually tell him that he didn't want to see him in the hotel from captain's run onwards. He said, just don't come back and interrupt the players that are playing, but I don't want to see you in the hotel.
Oh, that's so good.
So the bomb squad would go out. We had a couple of good leaders of that. They used to go out, have a good time, and turned up with a smile on their face at game day. But speaking about what you said about how a lot of the touring teams went to England and played against St Helens and Wigan and stuff like that, I would love to see like a Four Nations or a big tournament held in Australia or New Zealand or wherever it may be, and a Great Britain side or an English side would come out and play, I don't know, the Roosters or the Tigers, like whatever Sydney-based club or wherever they were playing, whether it's in Queensland or whatever. Even the Warriors, if we had a test series in New Zealand, see them come over and test themselves against the NRL side before the test matches, that'd be pretty cool and be a massive throwback.
Yeah, be unreal. Now I'm going to take you to 1990, Game 1. Really interesting storyline that people don't realise as well. Game 1, they lose. Great Britain win this one 19-12, and Ricky Stuart, he's obviously the face of this 1990 Kangaroo Tour, which we'll talk about soon. He actually started that series at 5'8". Yeah, Alan Langer was the first choice halfback. Yep. He breaks his hand in this game. So Ricky Stuart moves to 7. And also, Kerrod Walters was the hooker in the first game, the first test. They moved to Benny Elias in Game 2. So not very often you see the Kangaroos off the back of one game
chop and change,
halfback and hooker. Like, pretty crazy. And to think Ricky Stuart, he goes on to, first of all, be the villain, then to be the hero of this series. He wasn't even the first choice halfback. It was Alf originally. So pretty wild there. We get to Game 2, and, you know, when you think about before 1990, you had the 82 Kangaroos, the 86, regarded as, you know, some of the most successful teams of all time. 1990, a great squad as well, was meant to absolutely blitz this entire tour. They lose Game 1, they come into Game 2, and Ricky Stuart, he comes up with a play late in the game where there's a shooter, he lets him pass, then he throws another pass, and I want to say his name was Lachlan. He was number 16 for Great Britain. I don't remember can you have a look at that, Matty? Game 2, 1990, he's number 16. I think his last name's Lachlan. He takes this intercept, he scores this try. It's 10-all, they've got a kick to try and take the lead. Thank God they missed the kick, so it's 10-all. Have you got his name there?
Paul Lachlan.
That's
great memory from you, that.
Thank you. Thank God it wasn't Carmichael Hunt.
The guru.
And it's 10-all at that point, and then Ricky Stuart comes up with one of the greatest plays of all time. He takes the ball down the left-hand side, comes back to the right, he throws a dummy, he goes straight through, and there's that great footage of him trucking 60-odd metres, and Mal Meninga's coming up behind him, and there's 3 defenders, and Mal literally shoulders each of them out of the way, and at the last second, you can tell Ricky Stuart, he can sense Mal coming up on his left, and he just pops it to him. Scores a great try. I think it's one of the greatest tries in Test match history, but should also be noted, they scored another try earlier in this game. Cliffy Lyons scores it. If you haven't seen it, go and have a look at it. I counted it today. There's 13 passes and a kick from the sideline back into the middle. The amount of hands this goes through is simply incredible. And of course, there's a rogue kick that comes in from the sideline, and who does the ball go to?
Yeah,
Cliffy Lyons. Yeah. Unbelievable. Should also be noted, Mal Meninga scored the winning try in this game. He actually scored a try in all 3 games here. One of his 4 Kangaroo tours he went on, Mal Meninga. 1990, incredible. It's 1-all. You got to remember as well, when it was 10-all and Ricky Stuart had thrown this intercept, if he doesn't come up with that play at the end, which was the last play, it was a walk-off victory, that was it. Mal Meninga, he kicks the goal. He actually missed it, but as soon as he kicks it, the siren goes, and that's it. If they would have drawn that game at 10-all, because Great Britain had won the first game,
they win.
It would have been they would win, or it's a tied series.
Yeah.
Which for the Kangaroos, by the standards they had then, it's a loss.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's one of my favourite tries in history of the game, let alone playing for Australia or a Test match. Just the way that Ricky showed resilience to not get bogged down by a mistake earlier on. We've all thrown intercepts. I threw 2 this year, and you walk behind the line and you feel like you've not only let yourself down, you've let your teammates obviously down, your fans down, and you just want to dig a hole and not come out of it. You're a bit embarrassed as well, but it's all part and parcel of the game. But to do it on the biggest stage and then to have the composure to, as we spoke about with Thurston, have the ball in 2 hands. They obviously thought that he was going to try and throw the same pass, brought him up, went straight in behind, and that sideline footage that they have where it's like on a 45-degree angle where it's ground level and you see Ricky's legs and just big Mao come flying up on the inside. And as you said, just jockey for position or bully for position in his terms and just walk over for a try. It's one of the great sort of like redemption moments in not only international football but in football in general too. So Ricky come up with so many moments at Canberra, but to do it on the biggest stage for Australia was pretty amazing achievement.
And once you're done on YouTube watching the 2006 Anzac game, all these games are on YouTube. Having a shocker today. I'm really enjoying myself too, which is awful. But anyway, once you're done with those, go and have a look. Every single one of these games is on YouTube, and just talking about some of the great players from the Lions. On one wing, Martin Afire. I had him on my podcast last year, and mate, some of the things he did. There's a game. Not only a game. There's a semi-final. He scores 10. Is it 11? 11 or 10? Something crazy.
I forgot. I think he scored 11 at Wembley, maybe, or something like that.
Well, there's a statue out at the front of Wembley of him, isn't there?
Yeah, and there's a great photo of when he scores and he gets on his knees. Yeah, it's one of the more iconic moments.
Yeah, great fella too, Martin Afire. He'll tell you a couple of stories about himself, which is great though. He can sell a story, mate. It's like, sometimes it was like there was no one else on the field except for Martin, the way he told it. But absolute champion. The halves, and if you do go back and watch this 3-game series, Gary Schofield, Andy Gregory. Yeah. They were incredible in this series. And the skipper, the 13, the great Ellery Hamley.
Oh, what a player. The Pearl.
Yeah.
One of the greatest players to ever do it from either country. And once again, like, sort of embracing the English way and being a part of the setup over there. Like, Ellery's arguably the greatest ever Englishman, and what he did when he came to Australia for Balmain and stuff like that was unbelievable. But Gary Schofield, fantastic player. Bit of a pundit now over in the Super League, and then Andy Gregory, probably arguably the greatest ever halfback to come out of the UK. So they obviously had a fair team. No wonder they put up such a great fight against Australia.
And as you said with Ellery Hamley, one of the greats to come out, and there's the old story in 1988 when he comes out for Balmain, they go all the way to the grand final, and there's no real footage of it, but he's suspiciously taken out in that game, and it's an interesting yarn to have. It'd be like taking out, I don't know, if you're playing Penrith, it'd be like taking out Nath Cleary, I guess.
Yeah.
Like by far and away their best player, the most talented guy on the field. So obviously before we had 1,000 cameras on the field and whatnot, but that's how good this guy was that Canterbury side had to sort him out.
Yeah, well, he's the head of the Man of Steel panel too over in the Super League. So he's actually the man on stage that will present you the trophy. And weirdly enough, I got to play with his son Yumila Hanley at Wigan too. So I got to relate to Yumila on a personal level. Father was an all-time great of not only the English Rugby League but the club side Wigan that Yumila's trying to make his own name for, and I was able to relate with him. I got to tell him my story about me at the Roosters with my dad and the sort of traps I fell into, not being able to handle that properly too. So as we said, there's always a storyline within something, and he's going to be a great young player, plays fullback or 5'8", tough, brings the ball back hard, and plays his own style too. So wish him nothing but the best, and he's a great young kid.
I think the other thing, just before we move off this game, the other thing I want to mention is these Kangaroo jerseys. I'm pretty sure they had the names across the back.
That's so cool.
Eddinghausen. Shoulders weren't big enough. That whole name, it was almost touching his elbow. It was all over the place. But just to read you that Kangaroos side: Belcher, Eddinghausen, Meninga, Daly, Dale Shearer, Cliffy Lyons, Ricky Stuart, Lazarus, Benny Elias, Steve Roach, Paul Siren, and Bobby Linder, Brad Mackay.
Daly. I used to love, obviously wasn't alive to watch Laurie in person, but whenever, I always go back and watch highlights and old school games. Laurie, the way he played 5'8", was kind of like Freddie before Freddie in a way. Same sort of big body type, would run over you, but had the skill set to match. He's one of the players that I used to love Googling on YouTube and watching how he'd play centre, 5'8", and just his combo of Ricky at Clubland was unbelievable. And
in this game, he's actually playing out in the centres because of how versatile he was when he was younger. And of course, Brad Fittler was part of the Emus, so I
reckon Freddie had a few beers on the tour.
They reckon he returned 10 kilos heavier from a 6-week tour.
And had gout.
Yeah, fucking unbelievable. The great Brad Fittler, he could do it all. Matty, what's your game? What's your second game, mate? What do you got for us?
So when I think of my favourite ever games, what comes to mind is 2000 prelim final, Roosters Knights, one of the greats. I think of 2014, Game 1, State of Origin, and this 2013 World Cup semi-final is in this list for me when I think of just the fucking sickest game. So it was England versus New Zealand at Wembley to get into the final of the 2013 World Cup. And I remember I watched this live, and I remember thinking, this is the best game I've ever seen. Obviously, recency, but I was like, this is the best game I've ever seen. This is fucking crazy. I was going for England purely because they had all the Burgess boys in there. No other reason than that.
Show me your tattoo.
So basically, the game started with James Graham throwing a short ball to Sam Burgess, like, fuck, what a combo, who then offloaded to Sean O'Loughlin, who scored. Then New Zealand scored after that when it went like Foran put a kick in and went from the left wing to the right wing. And you remember, was it Dean? I think it was Farre. Let me just confirm. Yeah, it's Dean Farre. He did that like hectic flick pass, and the camera was just positioned so beautifully for Roger to score. Then in the second half, Roger scored a try again, but it was like the complete opposite. It was like a very slick play. Callum Watkins then scored, and then Sammy Burgess, ran off so New Zealand had a dropout. George Burgess charged back, and then when he played the balls, Kevin Sinfield double pumped and threw it to Sammy Burgess, who had 20 metres to run, and he scored. And fuck, by this point you're thinking, all right, England are on here. And then 4 points down, Sean Johnson. He's had a lot of moments, but you could argue this is his best.
Is that the moment you remember for SJ? I mean, he's obviously had a lot of crackers, but as far as big stages and delivering, I thought that was unbelievable.
There's 2 tries that I remember from Sean Johnson's career so far. Obviously, it's still ongoing. The one at Shark Park where he caught it after the bell and he ran left, literally quadruple dummy all the way to the right, come back and then just went in between where the 2 markers were at Shark Park. And then that try, like, it stings from if I've got my English glasses on, that stings from the perspective of that's another final that England should have been in, the way they were positioned in the game. But the try, man, like the electricity, the way that Sean could move from 0 to 100, either left, right, or straight, at his prime, was as good as anything I've ever seen. Like, to catch it borderline standing still with a shooter off his own try line, to beat him with a subtle goose step that ends up being huge, then to show in one motion and have a big prop coming across left foot. And then we spoke about it, Matty, just before we jumped on, to have the composure to then bring your heart rate back down, to kick from, was it the scrum line or maybe just inside the scrum line?
About the scrum line, yeah.
And they're the kicks as a goal kicker. Like, I know that, like, I speak to kickers all the time. They're the ones that we hate because they're the ones that the crowd expect you to kick, but don't realise, like, the margin for error is so small. Yeah. You can kick it too hard and spray it. 2, you think about it too much and you hook it. Or 3, what SJ did was bring his heart rate down and just nail it over the black dot. But, yeah, that try, from an English perspective, just haunch you. But from a rugby league fan perspective, is just fucking phenomenal, mate. Like, out of this world, like, speed, awareness, skill, and then clutch and composure to kick the goal too. Freaky.
Isn't it crazy how many, like I was just watching that try again, and the pass from dummy half, it's probably a metre too long. But if it wasn't, Sean Johnson just falls into a robotic way of playing.
Yeah, like we speak about it at training sometimes. Sometimes you want your hooker to actually throw it out in front, and you want your hooker to throw it out in front and hard. And it does 2 things. It makes you reach, and we spoke about it with Toddy Carney, catch it at its furthest point, but it actually brings you onto the footy. So sometimes, like, I'll encourage my hooker just to get it out in front and pass it hard. It gets me coming onto the football hard, gets me over the ad line, and that actually got his momentum already beating Kevin Sinfield, because Sinfield comes from front on with Johnson's pace. It actually got him straight past him and got him to be able to come off that famous left foot and score.
It's with guys like him, like, when things go slightly wrong, sometimes they're perfect.
Yeah. Sean, I'll tell this story to my friends. I'll share it with you guys. You're my friends now. So whenever I played Sean when I was at the Roosters, when he was at his peak athleticism and would snap people's ankles all the time, I was paranoid to be on a Sean Johnson highlight reel, because I knew at the drop of a hat, if he decided to go, fuck, we need to try here, I might just go right foot, goosey, and then just run around him. I was thinking, just don't be the guy to race out and get snapped in half. Fortunately, SJ's I've never been on a highlight reel, but obviously we have to play the Warriors this year.
Still plenty of time, mate.
Never say never. I'm touching wood, but I used to have my Facebook username when I was a kid. MySpace, sorry, was Sean Johnson 7 at hotmail.com. He was my favourite player to watch. Obviously, touch days. When you're a kid and you Google Sean Johnson and the touch highlight reel, it's so fucking good. The grouse. But then when he burst on the scene and was just doing unbelievable things, man. He, one of my favourites growing up. So if he watches this, Sean Johnson 7 at hotmail.com, it's probably out there somewhere. Jump on my MySpace, give it a follow.
Mate, how good was that old grainy ass touch footage? I remember being in high school and like if you didn't watch that once a week, you lost your phone.
It gets you excited, eh?
Yeah,
like,
it was
gets you excited.
And then you like I remember when he came into first grade, everyone was like, "Oh, that's the guy from the touch video," and you're like, "Nah, surely it's not. It can't be."
Actually, another. So he's got that big left foot, and he done it on the touch field so many times, and it correlated. I remember they played Manly. I don't know if they played at Eden Park or something different. They weren't at Mount Smart, and they played Manly. I remember this try so clearly. It was about 10 metres out, and Sean Johnson just went triple left foot, just went boink, 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 and scored under sticks. I don't know if you remember it, but it always sits with me because he's big through the hip, Sean. Like, he's underrated how thick he actually is. He's a big body, and just the power, just speed and acceleration, something that I just dream of.
That was the that was round one season. Yeah, was it over at Perth? Wasn't it? It was in like a weird.
I thought it was Wellington or something like that.
Yeah,
or
maybe
Eden Park. It wasn't at Mount Smart.
But it was like a pristine field. It was perfect conditions for us.
I'm sure it was in New Zealand. And he just went triple left foot and it was under the sticks. I just, like, whenever he decides to, even now, like, whenever he decides to put the foot down and use his footwork, man, it's probably not as sharp as what it was. And obviously Father Time does that to everyone. But he's still just got that athleticism to be able to just go left foot, right foot whenever he wants. It's special to watch, man. Where would you rate him in... Random, where would you rate him in your top steppers ever, NRL-wise?
Oh. So you got him, you got Benji, you got Roger, fuck all Kiwis. You got Pong at the moment. See, I always thought...
They're all different too.
They're all different. Like, Roger's very subtle, whereas, like, Johnson's, like, fucking... growing up, I always thought Johnson had the best one.
You know, like, the thing that Roger's different to Benji and SJ, like, SJ and Benji move beautifully, like, silky and, like... It looks sexy. There was a big goose step. Like, their body just moved in different ways to what everyone else's was. Getting the chance to play with Roger and watching it live, the impact and force he'd generate when he hit the ground off his left foot. Like, it was funny, like, when I was playing at the Chooks, they'd kick over our head and they'd try and box Roger into the left corner because they know that he wanted to step with his left foot. So he'd be stepping to the open side of the field and you'd be able to umbrella him or try to umbrella him. So if you kick it to the right, he's got that room to come across field and just whack you off your left foot. And the amount of times they'd do it and they'd go, left foot, left foot, left foot. And the bloke leading the chase would just end up on his arse just watching Roger run past him off his left foot. It's, you know, it's a good step when they're calling for it and he still gets you. But I'm just trying to think, those three are definitely 1, 2, 3 at some point.
Yeah.
And Kalen's sort of got a highlight reel now where he's getting his name right up there. I'm just trying to think of...
Just while you are thinking of that.
Carmichael Hunt.
Yeah, Carmichael
Hunt. Yeah,
the jump step.
Yeah.
The jump step, man. I might try and bring it back with my speed.
I was really hoping that name wouldn't come up again. That's fine. I was just having a look, as you said, that try against Manly.
Yeah.
What year do you reckon it was?
2012.
Oh, well done. Yeah, round 1, 2012. So it was the grand final replay in round 1.
So I'm the guru now.
Mate, you can have it. By all means, you can have it. Eden Park it was too.
So
you were right there.
2 in a row.
Yeah, mate. Yeah. Even a broken clock.
I do love my footy.
Matty, anything else to add on that fantastic play by SJ in that game?
Sammy Burgess was man of the match. Just on SJ, I think it was a couple of years later, over in Perth, you've sparked a memory. Probably one of the only people to, like, absolutely smash Sam Burgess.
Yeah.
When he just picked him up and put him straight on his back. Fucking SJ so
I remember
good.
that, man.
Yeah, that was over in Perth too.
Yeah.
But yeah, Sammy was man of the match that day. So
He got man of the match in a losing semi-final.
Yeah. I don't know if they, like, because you know how, like, at the moment they're picking the man of the match with a couple of minutes to go.
about
I don't know.
half-time.
Yeah, I don't know
I
if they
think he
did
was
that
man
then.
of the match, though. If
But,
you
like,
watch the game back, he,
100, yeah.
apart from the one key moment that SJ nailed, he was in all the big moments for England, wasn't he?
100%. He's so good.
All right. Got some test matches for us to finish off on?
Yeah, I went with the last two that we just watched. Over the weekend, we sort of touched on it briefly in the opening sort of segment, but the Australia-New Zealand game was everything that you could have asked for in a test match. It was a battle of, like, just some of the best players in our game currently, even ever, in their positions to go at it. And the amount of chances that the Kiwis had to win, the amount of chances that Australia had to win, and then ultimately the try that decided it was just a hit up, essentially. It wasn't one of them moments of magic. I remember, obviously, the Jerome Hughes kick. If Peter Hiku got that down, that would have been arguably one of the greatest test match tries, kicking on second tackle. And I liked it. Like, a lot of people, like, obviously, I use Twitter as a bit of a tool, but you jump on there when games are on, and sometimes you want to add a comment. I actually wrote a thing at halftime, one of the greatest halves of football I've ever seen, and then People were trying to criticise Jerome for his early grubber, but for me, he wasn't playing conservative. He went to win the game. He took the game. He tried to take the game by the scruff of the neck and win the test match for his country. He didn't want to sit back and just wait for it to come. He went to the game. So I actually admire him for going for it. And it literally was inches in it, inches in it. And then like Josh Addo-Carr's try will go down as one of the great test match tries.
Oh,
the hit and hope from Benny Hunt, or Benny will tell you that he aimed for the corner post. But Addo-Carr's awareness and speed is so good that he just got to the drop zone so quick. You can tell that the Kiwi winger was sort of couldn't balance between the sideline and where the ball was, whereas Addo-Carr's awareness and positioning was just unbelievable to score that try.
So on that try, my automatic reaction was, oh, geez, you got Joey Manu, who hasn't played much, fullback, probably not good communication with his winger. They must have been out of position. I watched it back. They weren't that far out of position. But what just a perfect kick.
And the Kiwis had to run backwards, whereas Josh was running, the Fox was running straight onto it, so that makes it hard. And then the first try of the game, Joey Manu, fucking hell. Oh. Like, to catch at the highest point that you could get to with your knee in the air, 3 blokes around you trying to block it, and then just go, there you go, score that try. It's
like when I did my review, I called it a tap back. I watched it again. No, it wasn't a tap back. It was a complete catch and then a pass. Yeah. Like, he's a freak, Joey Manu.
He's so gifted, mate. Like he could play any sport he wanted, I reckon. Like he's just got the ability and knack to come up with shit that you wouldn't even try at home.
Yeah, and I posted about it. Actually, I was going to talk about the other game, but anything else to say on that Kangaroos game?
Nah, I just think like both sides made breaks.
Yeah.
Good scramble. I just thought it was an out-and-out unreal test match and a great advertisement for rugby league. And I'm glad that it was in England too, because they're slowly attracting more people. Like I saw some cricketers. I saw Stuart Broad write a tweet about it, English fast bowler. There's people over there that are really starting to get an interest to it, and the way the World Cup was organised and playing in different stadiums, even like stadiums that you probably wouldn't necessarily play many big games that got to run, and you bring in new eyeballs to it too. And it's great for the game. Great advertisement. 2 great sides, both well coached, and great result for the Australian team.
I think the differing halves as well, as in like first half and second half, made it good too, because the first half was just fucking spectacular. There was pretty much no errors, and the second half was just so intense, so gritty.
And the way that Australia won off the back foot, like New Zealand were pretty dominant in that first half. Their pack, as we all expected, was going to step up. Fisher Harris is just a monster through the middle. But I thought Dylan Brown's first half was outstanding. Like he was doing a lot of the kicking, a lot of the organising, and they were making some great little half breaks down their left with Papali'i, and then Ronaldo down the sideline, and Dylan Brown scored his try. But I thought there were so many fantastic plays in that game. It was like an all-star game. The Australia versus New Zealand game was fantastic to watch.
I thought as well, that try that Val Holmes scored, that right foot that Jack Whiten put on.
Oh, and offload in traffic,
And what about the tackle from Manu?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I know we scored, but Manu had no right to make that tackle.
Yeah, you're right. Like, there was just, like, big games all come down to moments. Like, all the people that have played 15, 20 tests, origins and tests for that matter, talk about it's not like who plays the prettiest style, it's who owns the big moments. And Jack Whiten's moment was arguably the biggest of the game.
Yep.
To play out of position on the other side of the field that he usually plays, to come off the opposite foot to what he usually steps off, then to offload in traffic in the wet in England to put his winger away is fucking outstanding.
Just for half time too, that try that Dill Brown scored, that went through 4 sets of hands in about 2.5 seconds.
Yeah.
It was just a real perfect rugby league trial. Wasn't
it went hands, winger down the sideline, and then as all good halves do, support up the middle.
Yeah,
it was a great test match, great advertisement for the game, and one side had to win, unfortunately, and they get their crack at winning the World Cup.
How good was it seeing Liam Martin get some recognition?
Yeah, outstanding. Like he's played in obviously a star-studded Penrith side, got to play Origin, which he sort of made for the way he plays, that ruthless edge, and that madman just flies out the line, and he's someone that you want to play for and hate to play against, because you know he's going to be in your eye line all game, not intimidated or scared of anyone. But if he's on your side, he'll do things that no one sees. And it's great that he finally got rewarded for, it's not always about making 150 metres and having 3 tries. Sometimes it's about the dirty work that you do for your other players to stand out. And I can't speak highly enough of him as a player, and well-deserved contract extension at Penrith as well. Mate, he's had a big couple of years.
Leads every kick chase.
Yeah.
Like you saw, as soon as James Fisher-Harris started getting on top, Liam Martin went, fuck this.
Yeah.
I'm going after it.
Yeah. And it's pretty scary bloke to go after too. So, and teammates. It's good to see teammates getting stuck into each other. I do like that. And then the respect they have at the end of the game to swap jerseys, and at the end of the day, they are very close off the field. You could imagine that Penrith side's all very well connected. So the respect they have to go after each other and then to shake hands and have a laugh at the end of the game is outstanding, I feel.
Now, I finished that game and thought it's not going to get better than that.
Yeah.
Wrong once again.
Yeah.
What about the next game, England-Samoa?
I would put that up there with close to that New Zealand-England game in terms of drama, like the theatre of it. And for Samoa, as I said, I've got to take my English cap off. I was obviously hoping the boys would get another chance to play in a final. The last final they were in, Callum Watkins got ankle tap with a chance to make it 6-6. I thought it was an interesting game. Obviously, Samoa had to bounce back from a 60-point drumming, but I sort of always had a feeling they had blokes in their team that you wrote about it not long ago. People like Stephen Crichton that come up with big moments. Brian To'o's played in huge games, but I thought the player that just took the game by the scruff of the neck was Jerome Luai. He was just outstanding. From minute go, the try he set up for Laffey, that tight spiral out ball where Laffey come off his right foot to beat Cal Watkins and score. I knew Jerome was in for a day, and obviously he got into the niggle with Tompkins and things like that, try to unsettle him. But the thing I love about Jerome is people can say whatever they want about him. He backs it up. He's played in 3 consecutive grand finals, won 2 of them, won 2 league leaders, or minor premierships, as we call it here. Sorry, got my Super League cap on. Won 3 man of the matches in a row at the World Cup, guided Samoa to a first ever semi, now a first ever World Cup final. He's won at Origin level and played back-to-back series. I think he, as you sort of said, he needs a bit of respect because he's one of the great characters of the game too. Not everyone has to be this cut and copy, yeah, mate, we played, all credit to the boys, this sort of character. He's one of them characters that people want to go watch because he plays the game the right way, tough, he's in your face, he's got all the skills in the world. And I think he's starting to get his credit because, a lot of people give Nathan the credit, and rightfully so. He's a generational talent, Nathan. There's no denying that. But Jerome plays a huge part in Penrith's success, and he's proven that now.
Oh, for sure. And I always, you need villains in rugby league.
Yep.
What is rugby league without villains?
Yep.
And he plays it perfectly. And, yeah, he says a lot of things, but backs it up every single time. He doesn't hide away from anyone. He's not a 5'8" that defends on the wing.
Yeah.
He gets in, he gets involved in everything. You might not like the way he acts sometimes, but as I've been saying for a few years now, you want to humble him, beat him.
Yeah, but the thing I admire about these boys and what they're doing for their community is what they do away from the field. The amount of times that they spend with the kids from out west and how proud they are to be from where they're from. It's pretty inspiring, mate. So I feel like he has not the right, but he's earned the respect of certainly me as a player to go out there and admire the way he plays and as a competitor. And then he's a great family man. You see on his Instagram how much he loves his partner and kids and family, and then goes out there and does so many inspirational things for the kids out west. It's a pretty cool story. And I actually played combined all schools touch with Jerome under 15s, and he was on the wing, believe it or not, randomly. And now he's turned into one of the all-time silky 5'8s too. So he's one that I love watching. But on the flip side of that, I thought for England, George Williams was outstanding. He's probably not your natural on-ball controlling halfback, but what he is, he's low to the ground, stocky, big through the hips, great runner of the football, and obviously had 2 huge moments in that game where he set up Elliott Whitehead, show and go, got smashed by Joseph Suoli'i and got the offload away for Elliott Whitehead to score, and then when the game was on the line, show and go again, got in behind Anthony Milford and put Herbie Farnworth away too. So got to play a lot of footy against George when I was in the Super League, played great in the NRL, and I think he deserves a lot of credit. Warrington had a rough year this year, and people got into him, but he had a fantastic World Cup, and he was outstanding for England alongside your man.
Mate, I thought him and Elliott Whitehead were unbelievable. It was no shock to me when Anthony Milford went to kick that field goal and it was charged, and we went to the replay. Elliott fucking Whitehead. He was everywhere, and I think people forget as well, just before he went to Golden Point, he made a line break.
Yeah.
If someone was with him, he wins that game for them in that moment.
I've got so much respect for Smell, or that's his nickname, Elliott Whitehead. The way he plays the game, got to play alongside him for Great Britain, and he's not the biggest bloke in the world, but underrated ball playing forwards. He actually should have got a mention the last time we spoke. He's unbelievable the way he can pass and his vision, but he's relentless. Like, he's just got that attitude where I'm going to win. I'm going to win everything. Like, I'm going to kick chase. I'm going to escort. I'm going to go third man. I'm going to dive on a loose ball. I'll do anything for my teammates. He's just a fucking phenomenal talent and someone that you want to play next to. He's a bit like Liam Martin with probably a little bit more skill and a bit rangier, obviously. Been around for a long time, Elliot, but yeah, he was outstanding. And I suppose we've got to talk about Stephen Crichton, like talk about the big moments. Like, he's clutch, mate. Like, that field goal too, like we spoke about it, for Chanel Harris-Tavita to go into an unfamiliar positional hooker to make 30 to 40 tackles against a big English pack that were going after him, to get into dummy half and throw left to right, mind you, probably not his preferred side. And for Crichton to stand so deep and have the belief that he knows he's going to get the range and accuracy from that far. And if you actually watch him kick it, it's smooth. Everything that Crichton does is smooth. He doesn't look like he's ever stressing, even at full flight when he catches an intercept. He's casual, he's cool, got the finger up to the crowd, just relaxed. Nails the goal like SJ did, and then nails the field goal and golden point. It's fucking phenomenal that he's 22, sorry, not 2. He's 22 years of age and got the world at his feet. I know, I know that he's just a phenomenal talent and one that's going to be around for the next decade and a bit.
He hasn't played 90 first grade games yet. He's won 2 comps. He's lost to grand final. I would argue he now has one of the biggest moments in grand final history, the intercept. You probably don't want to talk about it, Matty, but I'd put it top 5 moments of all time for individuals.
Yep.
To come up with that is huge. And like, is that a top 5 international rugby league moment of all time?
Easy. For the magnitude that it is for Samoan Rugby League, and for him to do it on the biggest stage at a massive ground against a team that they just got beat by 60, a team that's on home soil that probably should have been in the World Cup final, and for him to come out of right centre and just go, mate, give me the ball here, I'll kick it, I'll nail this. And he's one of them blokes that you know that he'd never thought that was going to miss, or he never would have thought the repercussions of that miss, a 20-metre tap. He just knew it was going over to. And I know he's very proud of where he comes from and unbelievable talent, generational talent, and someone that's going to be around for a long time. And,
you know, you've also got to consider that he's come up with, in my opinion, one of the biggest plays in rugby league history on the right side. He had that intercept for Samoa on the right side. He was Dally M left centre of the year 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Is he playing his best position set? We might, in 5 years' time, we might be looking back and going, fuck, he's a better fullback than what he was centre.
Yeah, I think he'll eventually go to fullback. I think he's got all the tools. Like, as I said, he moves so smooth out the back. Great skill set, got good hands, silky flick, got a kicking game. I reckon he could kick in general play if he had to. Like, he hits the ball that smoothly. But I thought Samoa's back 3 was unbelievable. Like, Joseph Suaalii, the way he brings the ball back is like, is he still 19?
Yeah, he's 19.
That is scary that he brings. I don't care what anyone says about his running style. The way that he's got the courage to just run at the biggest bloke on the field is mind-boggling for a 19-year-old. And he was doing that at 17 and 18, but to do it on the international stage, and then he had Brian Toto and Taylor May that do it for Penrith every week, just run all day. It's a great effort by them boys.
I think for Suaalii, the scariest thing is that he's 19 and he's realised how good he can be.
Oh, yeah.
So sometimes with guys like him, it takes so long for them to realise just how dominant they can be. He knows.
Oh, well, he's got what? If in Touchwood, all these boys stay injury-free, like, none of them are older than 23, are they? 24. Like, they could be around for another 10, 12, barring injury, 13, 14 years. With the sports science and the way, like, 30's not old in rugby league anymore. Like, I remember when, like, my old man played, he retired at 30 because that's old. Mate, the sports science and that these days, the way they look after you during the week, in pre-season, the doctors, like, the medication, the treatment, all these things that we've got at our, like, disposal. Like, 35, 36 is now the age where you're looking at maybe hanging them up. Like, it's crazy. Like, in clubs it's not a risk anymore to sign a 30-year-old. Look at Benny Hunt. One of the best years of his career, was he 33? 32, 33?
Yeah.
Like, it's amazing. Like, age is only a number. I know Father Time catches us all at one point, but when you got, like, the sports science now, it just helps out so much.
When was the last time you heard the sentence, but he's the wrong side of 30?
Yeah. Like,
remember during the 2000s, as soon as someone hit 29, it was, do we re-sign or do we move them on?
Well, I would argue that people are coming to their football prime at 30, and what I mean by football prime is everything slows down for people. They've seen most defences before. They've seen different game plans. They've understood game plans. They've disagreed with game plans. But when you hit 30, you sort of mature as a person, I'm guessing, and then everything slows down and the game becomes sort of a lot easier for you too. So 30's creeping up on me. So hopefully that works for myself, and I'm not just talking about it. Hopefully it comes to fruition. So
should I bore him with my Joey chat, Matty?
Go for it.
How much time we got? That's always my... We did a thing the other day talking about, guys, if you could bring back anyone from the past to play an entire career all over again injury-free, mine would be Joey.
Yeah, mine too.
Because you look at from 28 onwards, he played 50-odd games of first grade, but in those games he won that test match I went through, he won that Origin series. I went through a list of what all the greats over the last 10 years have achieved from 28 onwards, and the vast majority of their achievements come in those 6 years.
Yeah.
I don't think we saw anywhere near the peak of Joey, as crazy as that sounds.
Nah, and it unfortunately got cut short. It's just one of them tackles that went horribly wrong, and a lot of people get up from that, you know what I mean? But unfortunately, it ended his career. But what he fit into his career from the moment he debuted and scored, was it 28 points or something?
Yep.
Yeah, like against the Rabbitohs, and to have the moment in Newcastle with the 2 beers on the skateboard. He had Matty competing for him with Better Than Lego. Like, they had some moments, the Johns boys. But, yeah, I would have loved to have seen him play from my own selfish standpoint. Like, I was only really young watching Joey, but I got to see the back end of his career. I would have loved to have seen him play another 4-5 years when I was old enough to really respect not respect, but really appreciate what he was doing on a football field, how he was manipulating defences and how he changed the game. I remember I had the Joey Johns ball when I was about 8, and it taught you where to hold. Like, it literally had your fingers.
Had all the fingerprints on it, yeah.
I used to go to the park and it'd go, hold it like your finger here and here for a spiral, and I'd kick it and it'd end up just going like that, not even anywhere near a spiral. I was going, he's fucking lying. That's not how you spiral. Then fast forward a couple of years at the Roosters, I was 18, and then he come to train and he'd just do freaky shit, like hit the crossbar from 40 out of a kick, just goes... That's why they call me the 8th, and just walk off with his sunnies on and probably hungover.
I don't know if we've spoken about it, but you know that footage of him hitting the spiral in New South Wales camp?
Oh, yeah.
You know he's holding the camera for it?
Yeah, I remember you saying. That's pretty cool, eh?
Yeah, bro, I still watch that sometimes. Just think, fuck, that was a kick.
He says the 8th thing as well when he walks off.
He's like, that's why there's only 8 of
us. It's the best.
You got to be a good player to be able to say that.
Oh, yeah.
That is the absolute best. Mate, thanks for joining us once again. We always appreciate your time. We'll be dragging you back in whenever we can. Matty, thank you once again for all your work.
Thank you.
It's Ray Warren to you.
Rabsy down there.
Please.
Thank God this episode's over. That was a tough knock. Apologies to all the children out there. That would have been an experience for you. We'll be back for the off-season over the next few days. We'll let you know when our next episode will be dropping and what topic we'll be getting stuck into. Cheers, legends.